Hi, I'm Naomi Hall, and I want to welcome you to Mindset Makeover Finding Your Power Through Fitness, Nutrition, and Community. Because we all know what to do when it comes to healthy living, but we struggle to actually do it. And I found that mindset and community are two big pieces of that really help us to live a healthy life that promotes health and longevity. And so today I have with me Mathew Lehnig from Taking Point Leadership. Mathew is an expert in leadership development, organizational transformation, and building high performance teams. As a retired Navy SEAL officer and decorated combat proven veteran, Mathew draws from 30 years of experience in naval special warfare. He understands the value of building strong, resilient leaders and teams to help drive organizational success and achieve extraordinary results. So, welcome, Mathew.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and let me thank you for your service. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, 30 years. I just retired this December, so
Wow.
yeah. So it was a quite an extraordinary life.
Yeah, that is great. I both my parents were in the Navy and my brother in the Coast
Mm.
Guard and grandparents. So I appreciate those who served and allowed me to live the life that I live. So let's talk a little bit about kind of living a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, so I'll kind of break it down into a few sections. I think the first one is, we all as individuals we want to be healthy
Mhm.
and we want to live a fulfilling life, but we tend to struggle because of our mindset. And I think developing and, and expanding your mindset requires a set of incremental changes and kind of shifts in the way that you think, which is extremely important. I mean, that includes believing in the ability to change and grow, right? Seeing things as opportunities instead of challenges. And
Mm,
I think a lot of people look at, oh, my challenge is this or my challenge is that. I say, no, it's not a challenge. It's an opportunity for you to get better as an individual. Instead of focusing on the results, focus on the individual progress and the wins instead of the outcome.
mhm.
Because a lot of people that, want to eat better or lose weight or live a healthier lifestyle, they're consistently worried about the outcome. And maybe that outcome would be, well, I want to lose a certain amount of weight and it's not happening quickly. And so that mindset of, well, this week I lost a couple pounds. Okay, that's great. Those incremental, and eventually you'll get to the outcome. But if you're consistently worried about the outcome and not the individual wins, that can become problematic as well. I also think, seeking approval from others is, something you kind of have to be worrisome about. Instead, just kind of focus on your individual journey because that's really what it is. A healthy lifestyle is a journey. As you well know, in this day and age, everybody, fast food is everywhere, foods are everywhere, they're easily accessible, they're not very good. Some people, aren't really big into cooking, taking the time to prep food. So that becomes problematic, So you kind of want to make sure that you're kind of really focusing on that journey. Keeping a positive outlook is super important. And
Mhm.
then I think, what the big thing is always just kind of remind and reward yourself for the effort that it takes. So I'm very strict in my regimen when I work out and things like that and how I eat. And I'm very fortunate. My wife has a master's degree in nutritional science and human performance. So she does a lot of the cooking around the house. But Sunday, is kind of our cheat day.
Mhm.
So throughout the week, we kind of remind one another, hey, you working out? Are you doing these things? We hold ourselves accountable. But then Sunday, we kind of say, hey, let's cheat a little bit. Let's have a little bit of food, and that's kind of that reward that we give one another because we had a great week. So I think that that's kind of important.
Yeah, I love that. You hit on some really important points there of the it's a journey and focusing on
Absolutely.
the journey, and it's your journey and it's going to be completely different from somebody else's journey.
Yep.
And I think that's so hard in our culture because there's so much coming at us and we see so
Hmm.
many other people but we don't see their flaws. We see the highlight reel. So I think that's really important. But you also mentioned the accountability with your wife, of holding each other accountable in this journey. Can we talk about that piece and the importance of accountability, of community, of team, all of that piece?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we'll kind of break it out into full. First, there's the personal, and then there's the collective accountability, or kind of the collective impact is what I like to call it. So, individually, a person's commitment and acknowledgement of their specific goal is very important. And by, that could be losing weight, eating better, or being stronger both mentally and physically. Um, that should kind of be their drive that holds them accountable.
Mhm.
However, we tend to find that that's usually, not the case. And I think that's why people tend to stop eating better or losing the desired weight, because they haven't really taken the time to prepare themselves, mentally. And in the business world, it's quite interesting because I think everybody feels, that they hold themselves to accountability. Like, so what I will do is we will do a session with a group of people, and we talk about individual accountability. And I'll ask their group, how many people here hold themselves accountable? And of course, everybody raises their hand, which I always find amusing, because if you ask me that question, I'll be like, well, I do my best. But, I'm fallible as an individual, and sometimes I make mistakes, but I learn from those. And so then I'll pose the question, okay, well, how many people here have actually been on the phone with an individual? You're already on the call with somebody else. You answer the phone, you tell that individual, hey, I'll give you a call back. I'm in another phone call. That person says, please call me back. It's super important. You say, absolutely, I'm going to call you back. Don't worry, I got your back. Give me a few minutes. And then you never call that person back. And that person tries to call you throughout the day. You're busy, you're doing other things, you completely forget. And of course, everybody raises their hand. So at that point, you kind of go, well, hey, yeah, not everybody is fully accountable, to everything. And that's okay, so it takes commitment, but I think more than that, it really takes consistency. You kind of have to build those rituals, or what we call in the SEAL teams, a battle rhythm. And I'll give you a little story. So, kind of what I was talking about earlier. So, my wife and I, we decided to go through our master programs together. And so we did that because we knew that it was going to be difficult. We knew that there was going to be times where, you're tired, because we both had things. My wife was raising her children. Oh, and then on another fact, my wife was actually pregnant with our fourth child when we were going through that process.
Oh, wow.
And so we held each other accountable. We had our battle rhythm. We did what we needed to do during the day. We put the kids down. And then at 8 o'clock, we started, our school. And sometimes, I'd be tired. Sometimes she would be tired. And we'd look at one another like, no, we need to do this. And so we kind of did that together. And then it became our battle rhythm. And once it became our battle rhythm, it became very simple. We knew exactly what we had to do. We knew exactly where we were going to sit down. As a matter of fact, my wife was just, when you talk about a very strong mental mindset, halfway through her master's program, she gave birth to our child. She never stopped. She continued through and finished her master's program, and we finished it together. So I thought that I was going to end up being a little bit earlier than her, but we finished right at the right time. And that's just because she's like, nope, it's part of my battle rhythm. And so that was, you talk about a phenomenal, just incredible mindset, and just kind of having that, those rituals and those beliefs and that battle rhythm. It just, smoothly went right into it. And sometimes that takes time, and that's okay, but you kind of have to get into that rhythm.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So kudos to your wife. Like
Yeah.
that's impressive. And I know how challenging it is, because like I've done it myself, of going for graduate work and working full time and all the things in adult life when you go back to school. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned something, and this just reminded me of something I heard this morning. When you talked about commitment and like having to make that commitment to your own journey, to creating these rhythms, your battle rhythm. And something that was said, it was a podcast I was listening to, said are you committed or are you just interested? Because those are two different things. And I think sometimes we confuse commitment and interest. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, a lot of people will say, hey, I'm committed to something. But the word committed just means it's a mindset. And I think if you're not consistent, you know, in that commitment, then that becomes problematic because you can say, hey, I'm committed to living a healthier lifestyle. But if I'm not really consistent in that and I'm not holding myself accountable, then I think the reality is at some point you're going to fall off. It's almost like I think it's the what I call it is the New Year's resolution syndrome,
Hmm.
right? The New Year's comes around, everybody's like, oh, I'm going to get fit, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to live a healthier lifestyle, I'm going to do all of these things. And that's their commitment, but the consistency falls off. So maybe they're like that for a little bit and then they stop going. They're not holding themselves accountable. It hasn't had time to become a part of their battle rhythm. And then eventually it just falls off, and then they go right back into the same routine. So I think if you're going to be committed, you got to make sure that you're consistent in that. And so when you make that commitment, you have to be very, your mind has to be ready because just saying something because somebody else is saying it, it's not really part of your journey now. So you're not going to really take it like you would if you're like, I am going to do this. I am going to set all of these things in place. I'm going to get a buddy to help me. I'm going to make sure that I'm accountable. And I think that's kind of where those two tend to differ a little bit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I love how you're talking about it has to be your own journey. And like you and your wife did this journey together, but she committed to making it her journey. It wasn't just
Oh,
yours
absolutely.
or it wasn't just something you were doing. This was her journey and she was committed to finishing this. Like that is some solid determination there because I mean she gave birth and like has a newborn and there's
Yeah.
an added level of exhaustion and responsibility that comes there. And you both stayed right on track through that. So um that just demonstrates to me the importance of it has to be your own journey too. Like if it had been she had been doing it for you, she probably wouldn't have continued through there.
Yeah. And it's very interesting you say that because I was very supportive in the fact I was like, if, you've got three other children and you're about to have another one. I'm like, if you want to take a semester off,
Mhm.
I'm here, I'm fully supportive. When if I'm done before you, don't worry, I'll take care of the kids for the next 7, 8 weeks, whatever, And she just looked at me and she goes, she actually looked at me like, hell, like, no, I'm going to finish this journey. This is, and so I was like, okay, well, we had been holding each other accountable, from a collective impact statement. And so, I think that was, super important. But yeah, she was super focused. Her mindset was good. She was eating well. She was super healthy. We were living a great lifestyle as far as the healthy lifestyle. And, we were living in Hawaii at the time. And so, of course, that kind of helped out. It's a great environment. So, a lot of times outside and walking and things like that. So, yeah, but again, it was that commitment, it was that consistency, it was that mental fortitude, and just really making sure, that battle rhythm was set, and she just wasn't going to deviate from
Yeah. I think I need to meet your wife because I can relate to that
that.
situation there. I the last semester of my doctoral degree, I was full-time classes, writing, finishing my dissertation, working full-time, and I was so sick. Like so
Yeah,
sick. And I was just like, no, like I'm committed to finishing this. It's not going on any longer. It's getting done. And like I finished December and I that March I started a series of 4 surgeries in like 3 months or 3 surgeries in 4 months.
wow,
So, yeah, I was not a healthy person at the time. But yeah,
yeah,
I think making that commitment, like we are saying, like commitment versus interest and making it your own personal journey is so important. When it's like something you have chosen to do, rather
yep.
than like, yeah, I'd kind of like to be healthy. I'd kind of like these things versus no, this is my path and this is what I'm going to do. I think that makes such a huge, huge difference in whether or not you stay.
So important. Yeah. And not only that, I always tell people one of the things that I say is I say, hey, listen, things are difficult, but they're not unattainable.
Mm,
You just have to focus and you make the unattainable attainable.
mm,
And you do that through, obviously a process. And that's that mental fortitude, and that's that mindset, and that's that drive. And I think when people have a passion to truly do something and they go in with that type of mindset, it can change the outcome drastically. And that is super important. So, but I also think from a communal standpoint, or even from a collective standpoint, you know, kind of like the model that I like to follow is really you find individuals that have the common goal that you have. So like for example, when we were doing our program, our master's program together, that was a common goal that we both had, right? And the goal was to start it together. And then, the measurement of that was to finish it together. And I think that's what really, drove my wife when she was like, yeah, like we started together, we're going to finish together. And so that was super important. So you have those. So if it's a healthy lifestyle, if it's, I want to become, more healthy, a better cook, or I want to um, lose weight, well, how much do I want to lose? And then you work with another individual with that common agenda. Well, okay, together we're going to lose this amount of weight, and I think, you see that a lot with, women that do have children, they end up getting together as a big group. They have the little roller carts, they run around together and they just have that common goal, and they all talk about exactly what they want to do and how they want to do it, right? And then you, like I said, you do, after you have those, then you do all of the reinforcing activities, right? Or the skill sets that you need. So if you say you want to eat better, well, what are you doing to actually eat better? Are you taking courses to become a cook? So my wife, she took, not only did she get her master's in nutritional science, but she also took a multitude of cooking classes, everything from, you know, highly fatty to vegan to meat, and she did all of these things then so she could, you know, cook for the whole family, because we have a large family and everybody, it's funny, everybody has such different tastes and stuff like that. But she learned how to do that. Or if you say you're going to lose weight, then you got to go to the gym. If you say you want to change your mindset, then you have to do some mindful exercises. You have to read some books on that to get yourself smart. And then as a group, you communicate, and I think that is highly effective, because the reality is, there's so many individuals that have such great ideas, and you have to kind of open up your mind a little bit, and don't close off. Like, ask individuals, like, what are you doing? What is helping you? What are some of the things that have made you successful? And that communication is super important, because if you go into a silo, if you will, and you're just kind of showing up and you're kind of just going through the motion, eventually you're going to fall off, because, the commitment really isn't there. You're not talking, you're not having the discussions. You're not talking about what your measurements are of what you want to do. And so, having that communication is so, so important. And then, of course, as a group, you have that support and you have that feedback, right? Again, it's your journey. But if someone just comes up to you and, you know, says to you, wow, that dinner was amazing, or, you're looking really good, this is really working for you, or, I've noticed just this incredible shift in your mind, and your drive is, it's incredible. So those words, just as small as they are going to make such a massive impact on you. And that's why that communicative aspect is so important. So going back into my previous career, teamwork was everything. You realize that, as an individual, you were, honing in your skill sets, but as a team, you were unstoppable. And so not only did you hold yourselves accountable, which is, what we did on a daily basis, if you were tired or if something was going on and you were out on a mission, and you always knew that everybody in there had your back. Everybody supported you. There was constant communication. You trained together, so you had all those reinforcement activities. You shared what you had to do as far as whatever the goal was of the mission. Everybody had a common agenda. And so when you have all of those things together, I mean, it's phenomenal. There's nothing that you can't do.
Mhm. And I have seen that with my clients of the ones that try to go on their own, um, can only get so far and often drop off. But the ones that are willing to join the community, to work together,
Mm-hmm.
to support each other, to receive the support, those are the ones that are successful in the long term, that are able to
Mm-hmm.
stay in the game, that are able to continue even when it's hard. And like you said, we're
Sure.
human and we have our bad days and we fall off and whatnot. But when you're in that community, that's when you can be successful long term.
Absolutely. And it builds that resiliency as well, which is super important, right? And so, those long days, I think, when I was, so my last a couple years in the SEAL teams, I ran one of the most highly sought out organizations in Naval Special Warfare. And during that time, um, the hours were long, but if the guys saw me there, they saw that and they're like, well, yeah, this is very difficult, but he's here.
Mhm.
He's right alongside with us, and as the person who runs the organization, that means something. They know that they have your support. They know that they can have a conversation with you. They can talk to you. You can be there going, man, you guys are doing a fantastic job. Things like that. So all those reinforcing aspects are there, and it builds that credibility. It builds that cohesion. It builds that commitment. And so I always tell somebody, there's nothing that I would ask you to do that I haven't done myself or that I wouldn't do with you. And that's another part of that whole community thing as well. When people know that they can count on you and you're always going to hold them accountable and you're always going to be there and you're going to be supportive. Yeah, that's quite incredible a feeling for them and it for you too when you see it all come together.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's just this power of community, I think, that is so often overlooked because we're in such an individualistic culture of I do my thing, you do your thing, I'm in my little bubble, you're in yours, and we miss out. There are other cultures that are very much communal, and we've lost
Right.
that here. Um,
Yeah.
there's power there. In your work, in your organization, you have some change model that you work with. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we have a model that's called access, and that stands for awareness, aspiration, knowledge, skill, accountability, and then sustainability. So when we talk about awareness, it's really the understanding of why the change or what the desired outcome is, right? So, it goes back into if we were to have that discussion about, living the great lifestyle, your awareness of that you have to make a change in your life is super important. That could be maybe something traumatic happened, maybe you have high cholesterol, maybe, you had a stroke, maybe, you're a little bit more heavier than you wanted to be and it's harder to get around, it's harder to play with your kids. You actually have to have the awareness to go, hey, okay, I see what's going on here. I need to make a change. I need to have that desire, right? Again, making sure that also, with that comes consistency, right? And commitment and just having that awareness of it, right? And then the aspiration is really, the participation and then the support and then evangelizing that. So that's kind of where your partner comes in and you can say, hey, here's the change. I'm going to need this support. I need your help with this. And of course, in an organization, this is more like you're getting somebody to get on board with you and get that buy-in, right? Because that's really what this model is about. It's really kind of getting that buy-in for that change. Then you really need to, acknowledge, you have to have the knowledge, right? You have to have the understanding, the plan, the expectations. So if you're trying to live a healthy lifestyle, or if you're trying to become better at eating, you really have to have the knowledge. And I think we talked about that a little bit earlier, as far as making sure you go to the schools to become a better cook, or you're going to the gym. Maybe you have a professional trainer for a little bit, or something like that to kind of help you. You're reading the books, you're doing the work, and I think that that's very important. And then of course that gives you the skills which is number 4, to accomplish whatever that task or that project or whatever that goal is, right? And then again, there's the accountability piece. Not only is that the personal accountability, but that's the collective accountability as well. So what your roles and responsibilities, in this are to support that change. And then you have that collective group that also knows what your roles and responsibilities are. And that could be in big business or whatever that is. So you hold each other accountable. And then it's really the sustainability aspect of it. That's the follow through, that's ensuring that the change that you're doing becomes a part of that battle rhythm and that it actually take holds. Because I mean, you would actually be really, really surprised about 72% of the change initiatives in big businesses, they don't take hold. And so this model tends to help with that. But also just kind of what I said earlier, the other model that I utilize as well, that collective impact model, that's also a great model as well to kind of help in both areas. One's more business related, but can be utilized pretty much in every change initiative, from micro, to macro changes. And then the other one really helps out with the lifestyle aspect of change as well, and making sure you have that community, that support, that accountability. So they're similar, and you can utilize both, but one's more substantial for big corporations, big organizations, where one is really kind of focused more on you as the individual.
Yeah, that's amazing. Change can be hard, but you're giving
Mm-hmm.
a process there that makes it a little bit easier. There's one more thing I'd like to ask about. You mentioned it earlier. I don't remember the wording that you used, but it was basically starting with small changes and sustainable rhythms and systems. Can we focus on that part? Because I think, kind of like you said, like rather than focusing on the outcome, we focus on the journey. And I think the outcome is focusing on this big change. How do we start small?
So again, that's the incremental piece, is what I like to call it, right? And so you set these little teeny micro goals. So, for example, I'll give you a great example. I told my wife, I'm like, oh, I want to lose this amount of weight by this time, and my wife looked at me as a nutritionist, and she goes, "That's not healthy. It's not healthy for you to lose that amount of weight in such a small amount of time. So what I'm going to do is I am going to set up a plan for you diet wise, and you're going to lose that weight incrementally. So I'm not going to change a lot of things. I'm just going to draw down your calories a little bit. You're going to eat more times during the day. You're going to build your metabolism, and that's going to eventually let you burn those calories throughout the day and while you're sleeping." So she went at it from a very incremental standpoint, where I was trying to jump in and be like, I want to lose this amount of weight within like 2 weeks, which the miracle diet. But as a nutritionist, my wife was like, absolutely not. Not only is that not healthy for you, but you could bounce back at the very end of that and gain a lot more weight back, which tends to happen with people who go on those quick fad diets, and stuff like that. But, again, I got the skill sets from my wife. I got the knowledge from my wife. And then, together collectively, she watched and made sure that I was eating correctly and that I was doing the workout regimen that I wanted to do, burning the right amount of calories, eating, making sure I had all the micros and macros that were required throughout the day. So I wasn't losing any of the vitamins and minerals, drinking a lot of water. So all of those became a part of my battle rhythm. And so that is also very important. So as you continue to do it, some people, it becomes very difficult. There's prep in that, there's meal prep, there's food prep and things like that. And so all of these little things, at first they're different. But as you continue to do those incrementally, again, they become part of your battle rhythm, and then it just becomes the norm. So every Sunday, my wife and I, we cook, we do things, prep all the food that we have, put it in there for the week. So that's kind of a great way to do that. And it's the same thing, if you're going to learn any type of skill, you're going to go to the school first, you're going to learn that skill, then you're going to come back and you're going to slowly implement, that into your workforce. Because again, you're going to have people that are going to be resistant to change. And so, you have to incrementally bring those things in. You set your left and right lateral limits of kind of how you want to do that. And you do it incrementally. So
I think that's so important, the incremental changes, because
mhm.
I also love, I want to say maybe it's Daniel Hardy, the compound effect. His book is The Compound Effect, talking about like those little changes that result in big results. Um,
Absolutely.
and we
And also what you find is if you're trying to come in with just these over, if they're too much, right, then that becomes very problematic as well, right? It becomes overwhelming. So if you're going to do a massive change in your diet or in your health or in your living, those have to be incremental, because if you just jump in and you think, I'm going to do all of this at once, it becomes overwhelming. And then when things become overwhelming, they become stressful. When things become stressful, you tend to kind of, back off a little bit. And then of course that consistency stops, the commitment stops. And, you had good intentions. The intentions were great, but unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So incrementally doing that is super important, because, like I said, it builds the foundation. It builds the battle rhythm. It builds, that consistency. It builds that commitment. And so I think those are very important things. We utilize the term, slow is fast. Smooth is fast, right? So the smoother you are, the faster things happen. It's the same thing, slowly do that, and eventually, the outcome will be there. But, don't focus so much on the outcome, focus on, the little wins throughout the process. And I also think that that's very important,
yeah, I
right?
think you kind of summed it up there, of like focusing on those little wins as you go. And the
Yeah.
process. And I love smooth is fast. We have my background is in education, and we talk about go slow to go fast.
Hmm.
Start off slow, build those foundations, and then you'll be able to go much faster with your students. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
I just have three final questions. They're just kind of fun questions that I like to wrap up with
Okay.
sometimes. So I'd love to know, what are you reading? What are you watching? And what are you listening to?
So I love Marshall Goldsmith, and so I've got a couple of his books right now that I'm reading. So I'm actually getting my certification in coaching, and so he's a really good friend of an uncle, and I've had several conversations with him already personally, and so that is great. And so that's kind of what I'm reading. As far as watching, I love to watch real time, crime type stuff. That's
Okay.
kind of, it's kind of my passion, and I think yesterday we watched, I can't remember the name of it. It was a local thing that's happening here in Texas where I'm at. And, this happened a couple of years ago, but it's going through the whole process. And so I find that very interesting. And what was the last question? I apologize.
What are you listening to?
So I consistently listen to leadership podcasts. That's kind of my thing. So, there's a lot of great leaders that are out there right now, and they're doing phenomenal things. A lot of them are, teammates of mine that have actually gone on and great things. And then some of them, have started organizations, started companies, and they do a podcast on leadership development, HR, organizational development, things like that. Because for me, I'm a continuous learner. I always want to continuously saturate. I feel like if you're not feeding the mind in the capacity of what you're doing as an individual and kind of what your passion is, then again, things can kind of tend to fade away. And I always want to kind of have the tip of the spear, as we call it in the SEAL teams, always what's the next thing, what are some of the things that people are talking about, what is this the leadership fundamentals that are coming out now that maybe I haven't thought of, that I can utilize, and things like that. So that's kind of, those are really the three things.
Do you have any favorite ones that you listen to? Because I love, I'm the same way. I love to listen to podcasts and kind of keep myself sharp that way.
So I like real world type stuff. So a good friend of mine, he does one on, it is, um, wow, Team Never Quit is the
Okay.
name of it. And so he brings on, a lot of people. The whole thing is it's the mentality of, to never quit. to always persevere, to always move forward. And so he is an incredible man. And if you pop onto that podcast, or you'll see who I'm talking about. And he brings in a lot of people from the NFL, from the Green Berets, a lot of Navy SEALs and stuff like that. He also, is a Navy SEAL and has an incredible story. And so, as a matter of fact, I was on there a couple of days ago, which was quite interesting. So I did that podcast, which was really fun. But he has some incredible people on there, and again, it's all about just when you talk about mindset, adversity, getting over things, it's the never quit mentality. And so, I mean, I think that's a great one for me, because I've always, had that, being in the SEAL teams for 30 years and, getting myself ready to come out into the private sector and, be as successful as I am now, outside as I was inside, has been an incredible journey.
That's amazing. I will have to add that to my list. That sounds like a really good podcast and something I'd
Yeah,
enjoy. So I want to thank you for joining us, and
absolutely.
we do have a link in the show notes, the caption to Taking Point, some of the resources that you have there. I always want to call it Talking Point. I don't know why. Not the same. Taking Point Leadership. So we have some resources there. So thank you. And I thank our audience for joining us. We also have an interview with Brent Gleason, who you work with as well, from Taking
That's
Point.
right.
Check that one out as well. And this has been fantastic. You hit on some amazing points that I think people will find very helpful. So I want to thank our audience for joining us, and check out the resources that Taking Point has for you. So have a fantastic day. See ya.
All right. It was great. Thank you.